Well, howdy all, grab yourself a beer, it's time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today, GGG announced the future of the Scourge mechanic, and that is that it has no future. Scourge will not be going core in 3.17, nor are there any medium-term plans to bring it back either. So when Ultimatum didn't go core at the end of 3.14, GGG announced that they did plan to bring it back, and it probably will be in 3.17 in some form, but for Scourge, that's not going to be the case. So what's this going to mean for Path of Exile players? I want to separate this into two groups. The first group is the people who are motivated by standard play, which is a minority of the player base, but that's going to be quick to get through, so we'll talk about that first. Then after that, we'll come to players who are mostly motivated by league play. If you're a standard player, this means that there is going to be an absolute bonanza of legacy items. Legacy items are items that can't be attained anymore in Path of Exile, and some of these are basically all of the most expensive items in the standard league are legacy items. So this is things like Eternal Orbs at the extreme end, but then at the lesser end, you have things like old versions of uniques that can't be acquired anymore. Some of the pre-3.3 premium corruptions that existed. In 3.3, all of the corruption implicits that were available from Val Orbs got changed. And there are a number of things like you used to be able to get frenzy charge corruptions in different item slots to what you can now. So all of these sorts of things got changed. Synthesized items. Lots of these items can be worth a lot. Well, there are going to be a tremendous amount of legacy items that are created by the end of the Scourge League. And if you are someone who is motivated by standard play, what you need to do is right now roll up a character in the Scourge League, get them to endgame, and farm aggressively and get as many of these valuable items as you can. And then and hoard them, and when you get into standard, eventually dribble them out over the next few years, because legacy items can be worth a lot in the future. So that's the standard league players out of the way. Let's talk about the players now that are motivated by league play, temporary league play. I think there's going to be a few consequences of this. So Scourge, firstly, has been the highest pack size mechanic that has ever existed in Path of Exile. And additionally, not only does it add a tremendous amount of additional packs to maps, albeit not in a way that you can immediately access. But not only does it do that, but those monsters also have increased item quantity mods, and also increased item rarity mods. And those numbers for the quantity and rarity are really high once you start stacking up the soaked in corruption debuff. So this means that Scourge is a tremendous fountain of unique items, and this has become the new normal for players. You know, items like Chevron's Wrappings dropping several times a league for people that are running for 36 challenges, and as a result, just not having all of that much trade value anymore at all, and especially for items that are more common than that, like Cold Iron Point. So, with Scourge going away, this fountain of unique items is being turned off. And as a result, items that have been much more common in 3.16 than in the normal game are things like the unique jewel Unnatural Instinct. These are going to be much more expensive in future leagues. Unless, of course, future leagues have something comparable to the amount of unique items that Scourge drops. But even Heist doesn't drop anywhere near as many uniques as Scourge does, and Heist was previously the most extreme unique item fountain the game had ever seen. It was not rare to run a single map without a Reliquary Scarab. This is just an Elkin Go map that you would get the Scourge counter up to, say, 300 on, or even 250, and you would wind up having 18 to 25 unique items drop in that map, and whilst most of them would be rubbish, you would get a meaningful number of the rarer ones. So that's going away. Unique items are going to be much rarer. The second change is that acquiring 6 links at league start is going to be much harder than people have gotten used to in Scourge. And this is particularly the case for people that are wanting to play a 6 link of a unique item. So 6 links in Scourge was super easy to get. As soon as Alishar went public with his method of creating 6 links through tainted fusings, which has then just become the default standard. And you know, this was the most watched Path of Exile video in this entire league, something like 250,000 views the last time I checked it. So this was really widely seen. This was the biggest source of 6 links of uniques that the game has ever seen, and it's going away. So that's something else to keep in mind, that 6 links will be much harder to get at league start, and as a result, players are going to have to make do with a 5 link longer, or use items like Tabula Rasa that haven't been used very much this league. The next major change is going to be that divination cards are going to get rarer. Now, when I say divination cards, I'm talking about the ones that are Hall of Tileset drops. So this is divination cards like the Saint's Treasure, the Nurse, the Patient, these sorts of div cards that drop from any monster in a tile set. So they're not tied to a specific boss. They're available from any monster. The Scourge mechanics more than quadrupled the amount of these divination cards that dropped. That wasn't the case if you were just casually experimenting with the Scourge mechanic. This assumed that you were getting it to well over 200 every time that you ran a map. If you were getting it to 300, it would more than quintuple the amount of these divination cards you would get from a map. And so this meant that running one tower map with one tower map with just a rusted divination scarab gave more than twice the amount of nurse divination cards that running the same tower map with a winged divination scarab would give in a normal league. So this is going to mean that items that are primarily sourced through tileset divination cards will be quite a bit rarer in future leagues. The most significant one of these is Headhunter, but there's also the Exalted Orb is, it's not primarily sourced from divination cards, but there's a significant number that come from them. And also a number of other uniques will be in this situation as well. So that's something that's going to be a big change in future leagues. So get used to Headhunter, for instance, being quite a bit more expensive in future leagues because Scourge isn't there. It's not disgorging a tremendous amount of Nurse Divination cards like it has been in this league. The last thing that I think will be a consequence of Scourge not going core is that the current meta of low-level farming is over. So Scourge League has created this environment where the most profitable way to play the game for most players is to run low-tier content fast and to run as much of the Scourge mechanic as they can in that low-tier content. This is something that was last seen in to this extent in the Legion League. Legion had this low-tier Glacier farming meta where players would go into a Glacier map and they would just blitz to the Legion, do the Legion encounter, they'd set up their character to two-shot the Legion, and then after that they would then move on to the next map. That was something that was a really powerful strategy in Legion League. Scourge was similar, except you were full clearing the maps, but you were doing low-tier towers. That was the most powerful strategy, unless or until you got an incredibly powerful character together, and then at that point you could start doing the same strategy in tier 16 maps. So the low-level farming meta is likely to be over. That said, a lot of recent leagues have had some sort of low-level farming that has been an option in it. Like for instance, Ultimatum, it wasn't low-tier maps that you would run, it was scoured maps. So you would run high-tier maps, you would scour them, and you would hunt for the Trial Master. This was a very viable strategy in Ultimatum League, and that was something that a number of players were doing. There's always some sort of way to min-max, some sort of counterintuitive way to min-max. In Scourge, it was running lower tier maps. We'll have to see what exists in the future, but I think that we won't see another mechanic that's as extreme is extremely rewarding in low tier maps as Scourge has been. Anyways, that's the end of this. If you've got any comments or questions, definitely fire away below. Will you miss Scourge's combat encounters? Did you not like Scourge's combat encounters? Will you miss the sort of extra layer of chaos and customization on items from the Crangulator, or will you not miss it? And yeah, what are your thoughts? I'll leave it there. May your Varlobs have interesting results.